I'm Marcia Grabowecky. I'm an associate research professor at Northwestern University in psychology, where I study multisensory processing and primarily teach Buddhist psychology. So my training in science started with an interest in psychology in general, and especially how the mind works, and then from that, interests in particular about visual perception, so how we understand what we see, and from that it sort of evolved into understanding how the senses actually work together. So that's what we call multisensory processing or multisensory integration. So how does what we hear influence what we're seeing? How do we understand speech, for example, not just by what we're hearing with our ears, but with what we're seeing from someone's mouth movements as they're speaking? So we have some recent research looking at things like that. At the same time as those interests, though, I started as an undergrad to become very interested in Buddhism. And I've studied Buddhism both from a religious perspective, but also as really a psychological system. So in many ways, you can look at Buddhism as kind of a psychological therapeutic system, but it's essentially a model of how the mind works, how the mind and body are integrated, and how we can use the basic kind of functions of the mind and body to make ourselves really flourish, to encourage well-being instead of suffering, both for ourselves and for others. So my work kind of combines both of those interests to a certain extent. I think most of the modern mindfulness practices have actually evolved out of Buddhism. One of the people that really popularized an interest in mindfulness and meditation in the United States in particular was Jon Kabat-Zinn. And he was someone who spent time in India and studying with both Hindu and Buddhist teachers when he was a young man. And as a physician, he came back to the U.S. and felt that there was a lot of scope for using some of the techniques he'd learned about to alleviate suffering, especially in patients. So he worked with heart patients, pain patients, cancer patients, many other individuals, and developed this program of mindfulness-based stress reduction. So a program involving both yoga and different types of meditation, as well as some mindfulness exercises, some group work, and things like that. And it's probably the most studied intervention using mindfulness for all sorts of processes. So for many different kinds of mental and physical challenges that people might have, but also the program and these kinds of interventions work quite well for people who are otherwise healthy, but just to make them happier in their lives, less stressed, more focused, things like that. So the big take-home message, I think, for tonight is that many of these mindfulness and meditation techniques are actually very simple to implement into your life. It doesn't take a whole lot of work to understand how to do them. That doesn't necessarily mean that they're easy to do when you first start them. It can be kind of confusing and frustrating at the beginning. But there's not a whole lot of either money or time necessarily that you have to invest in doing them, and the potential for reducing stress, reducing discomforts of various sorts in your life as a consequence of these practices make them, I think, quite appealing to a lot of people.